So today we're going to break down the sweep phase of the get up, which is a really useful way to work on hip internal rotation. And hip internal rotation is a really important range of motion for gait and movements such as running, but also things like squatting and deadlifting and all those sorts of movements. If we look at the phases of gait, as we come into a mid-stance position, as we go through a state of pronating, our hip internally rotates, which helps us load into that big toe and create pronation. And that's a really important shock absorption phase of gait. And it also helps us shift our center of mass over the leg to actually prepare us for hip extension and propulsion. So as I'm coming through from here into mid-stance, my hip is internally rotating to help create that pronation and that shock absorption and allow me to shift my center of mass over the leg to get me ready for push-off and create the moment arm to get the glute max to propel me forward. So really important phase, range of motions for runners to have access to, but also anyone who does any lunging, squatting, deadlifting, and all those things as well. So today we're going to use the sweep phase of the get up as an exercise to actually work on hip internal rotation. So the sweep phase of the get up is when we're coming from here into this, and we're sweeping the leg behind us to come into a tripod position where we then hip hinge back and come into a half kneel. So it's setting us up for that. And what we see a lot of the time is as people begin to sweep this leg forward, they either throw their whole center of mass forward or they let this knee collapse. So first things first is, can you purely lift this up, come and be on 2 points of contact? From there, can you actually sweep that leg back without letting that knee roll in, so that knee staying over the floor? If that knee rolls in, then chances are you're going to do that in a lunge and in a squat and when you're running and all those sorts of things, because we want this to be the punctum fixum and the hip to be the punctum mobile. If this is moving, it means that the opposite is happening, right? So in order to create hip internal rotation and make this the main guy where the movement's occurring, we need to keep the knee still and we need to keep the knee over the toes. So what it looks like is that. You'll see I'm creating internal rotation at my hip joint. That's the Czech get up variation. The Turkish is exactly the same thing, but with the knee straight. Good. I can use my hand here to reinforce that. I feel a nice burn in my hip as my hip begins to work in that internal rotation range. If that's too much, then just come down into a side plank version and just begin with the lift and just initiate the motion. That might be all you have access to in your hip joint, so that's where we begin. Just begin to create hip internal rotation on a fixed knee, so the knee isn't rolling and doing crazy things either. So give that a go. Let me know if that helps not only your get-ups, but also your running, and create a bit more internal rotation power for you.